This podcast is a celebration of women who are shaping culture, influencing the world, and boldly stepping into the entertainment industry to create God-honoring content across all media platforms. I'm your host, Shari Rigby. Grab your coffee, settle in, and join me for an inspiring ride. Okay, before we get started, ladies, I want to share with you this incredible theme song that was built just for Defiant Ones by Luke Snyder. And this is what you're going to hear each and every time the series opens and closes.
That is amazing.
It's so good.
That is good.
Amazing.
Isn't
I'm
that
so
fantastic?
It
It
transports
is.
you to exactly the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It is so good. It is beautiful. The original score on this series is absolutely mind-blowing. And so it is just, and it's incredible. So y'all, that was just a little bit to give us a little taste as we dive into this incredible conversation that we're going to have today. I'm so excited to have y'all with me, and welcome to everyone who's listening and watching to Called as Creatives. As our nation approaches the 250th anniversary of America's founding, we're preparing to launch an immersive audio drama unlike anything we have ever created. Defiant Ones, the American Revolutionary's bravest women, brings to life the extraordinary stories of 8 courageous women whose faith, conviction, and sacrifice helped to shape this nation. But before these women could come to life on the page and in the recording studio, they first had to come together in a writer's room. Today, I am joined by the incredible women who helped to write this series alongside of me. Each of them brought their own unique experiences, talents, and perspectives to these stories, helping us craft authentic, compelling portrayals of women whose voices deserve to be heard again. Joining me today are, and I'm going to go through them a little bit because you have to meet each and every one of these women. First, let me introduce to you Bridget Crawford, an author and storyteller passionate about faith-filled stories and suspense. Kenny Phillips, writer, producer, and IP development executive who is dedicated to creating meaningful content that inspires audiences. Marianne Haaland, actor and writer whose love for collaboration and storytelling shines through every project she touches. And Claire Yorita Lee, award-winning writer, producer, and co-founder of Beautifully Flawed Productions, whose career spans television, film, animation, and audio storytelling. Together, we'll take you behind the scenes of the Defiant Ones, share what it was like to write these remarkable women of the American Revolution, and talk about the calling, creativity, and collaboration that brought this project to life. So let's dive in. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Hello.
having
Thank you.
us.
Thanks
This
for
is
having
exciting.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, first of all, I have to ask Bridget and Marianne, because Claire and I and Katie have been probably privy to listening to the theme song that came in when we were recording. And also, as we have been in post-production on these episodes, I would love to hear from the two of you how you felt about the theme song and how it inspired you in this moment to launch you into this podcast.
Well, honestly, it was compelling. I love it, and being a music lover, it set the tone of the show. I'm excited about it.
So excited. I feel like it transports me exactly to where I've been writing, to 1700s. I feel like I can smell the smells and hear the sounds, and it makes me excited to know what's going to happen. Who are these people?
I could not agree more with both of you. We have, every time we hear this piece of music, we literally sit with our arms up and we are like, ah. I really, really believe that that's what every person is going to do as they listen to this series. And it's just going to prepare them for the stories that they're about to encounter about these very, very special women of the Revolutionary War. So I want to jump right in because we've got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, I want to ask Katie, how did you become involved with the Defiant Ones?
Well, I have the extreme privilege of being on the team at Beautifully Flawed Productions and the Women in My World, and I get a front seat to all of these exciting projects that we have going on. And I just felt extremely blessed when Shari and Claire came to me and said, hey, do you want to write one of these? And as someone who didn't know a ton about the American Revolution and these women, I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know. But I mean, I wanted to have the opportunity to be a part of this project. So I dove in, and I'm so glad I did, because it was a job of a lifetime, really, to be able to tell these stories.
That's awesome. I want to ask you, Bridget, what was it like to get the email, or maybe it was a text message or a phone call from Claire, and asking her, or asking you, she was asking you about potentially writing. We're going to talk about the character that you penned here in a couple minutes, but how did that make you feel?
Initially, I would say possibly fearful, because this is out of what I'm used to doing. So when Claire told me that, it would be revolved around the American Revolution, and I'm like, okay, I'm down, but I know nothing. I know nothing about. So I'm glad I accepted the challenge, because it blessed me tremendously to be able to learn so much about the American Revolution, these women. I'm glad I did.
Well, these are incredible stories. And what you're telling me in your answer, Bridget, is you stepped into exactly what these women were also doing. There was an obedience, a calling, and there was a fierce desire to do something out of the ordinary. And so I think
Yes.
that is so profound with every one of us. But Marianne, you've been a part of, I feel like, the Women in My World and Beautifully Flawed Productions for such a long time. And Claire and I really just, every time we have a project, one of the very first women who comes to mind for us every time is we want Marianne to be a part of this somehow, some way. God, what does that look like? So what was it like for you? Because you just came off of a movie that you had written and acted in. What was it like for you to step into a writing position for television?
Very different. I mean, when Claire first, I don't remember if it was Claire or you, Shari, who approached me, and I was like, well, if you guys would like to consider me, I would like to be considered. And you were like, no, we've already decided we would like you to join in. And I was like very flabbergasted and honored. And it's something very different from going from your own imagination to something that's already happened in history, and to have to gather historical information. Yeah. I am also in the boat of not having known a lot about, had never heard of these women, and had to look up every single detail and didn't know anything. But what's really fun for me is that week that you wrote to me, I had been praying, Lord, I don't know what's next for my year. I have no plans on the slate for 2026. I have absolutely nothing. If you want me to write something, speak. And then I got this message from you guys, and it was like, okay, Lord, I hear you. I guess I will join in and write something. So felt very, very honored.
Well, we loved having you on this project. And, I want to talk a little bit, and I'm going to go to you next here, Claire. We told stories about 8 extraordinary women who were part of the American Revolution that really did have an incredible legacy and impact on what we know today. And we really do believe they are the bravest women of the American Revolution. And we have some incredible characters to talk about today. But I want to say 8 women who were extraordinary, and they really did tackle obedience and faith, and they stepped in between the gap. And so, Claire, I want to talk to you a little bit about how did you share with everybody how we actually found this project, what inspired you about it, and talk a little bit about the women that we decided that we were gonna start writing about and why they were the ones to inspire us.
Well, we were just coming off of A Lady in Defiance. We had been working with Heather Blanton. We decided, let's do another project with Heather. And she had sent us all these pieces, right? And we looked through all of them. But for some reason, the title, the story, all of it, Defiant Ones, was so exciting. I know we both agreed. There were so many good ones that she sent us, but we were both like, yes, Defiant Ones. These are the ones we're supposed to do. And Heather had, I don't even know how many women she had in this book that she had written. It must have been like 40 or something like that. So it took us a little while to pick all the women, but we went through all of their stories. You and I read through all of them. We picked our top 12. We picked another top 12. And then we like came together and we were like, no, these are the women. And it was you, Shari, who was like, we need someone to connect everybody. And so you said, let's do Abigail Adams because she wrote the letter, Remember the Ladies. And it kind of just all came together. It was such a collaboration. Katie helped us choose. I think we all just kind of came together and decided this is the way to do it. And we love Heather. So we love working with her. So we brought her on then to do the novelettes. And it's just been such a great process and such a great project. And then it being the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, it just made sense. And everybody we presented it to got so excited about it.
It was such a great, well, first of all, I have to say I love the name alone, Defiant Ones. I mean, come on, that in itself is just super cool because there's something about it, not that it's defiance and anger or hostility, but it's a defiance and I believe that I can and I have a God who is able. And I think that was something that was really, really part of the conversation too, is like these women were so strong in their faith and in their family and then what they stood for with freedom. I want to go and talk with you a little bit also, Claire, and then I'm going to jump to some of the other ladies. One of the things that I want to share a little bit about is here we are. We're all sitting here together. You and I have been dreaming a long time. Katie's joined us in our dreams and visions now. Marianne, you've been with us for a long time. But Claire, share a little bit about what we've desired and dreamed about with this vision of bringing writing rooms together, women's stories particularly, told by women, created by women, and for women. And so talk a little bit about that.
I think, Shari, what you and I love more than anything is collaboration. And so this has given us the opportunity to collaborate, but we also really love to mentor. So we love to speak into women and take them in their dreams and what their gifts and talents are and cultivate that. And I think that this opportunity, these writers, this project has allowed us to do that. I think the first thing that you and I thought about was, and we're not writing all of these. We need to bring on the women to write these stories. That this is the way it has to be, and we want to prayerfully decide which woman it's going to be. And it began with Katie. We were like, we know we are going to have Katie write an episode. She ended up writing 2 episodes, which was fantastic because she even picked a new woman for us to. A second woman to write about. Yeah. Then we had talked about Marianne. Marianne has literally been on every project we've ever done. It's been amazing to watch her and to see her come into this writing process and become a writer and do it. And that's been so exciting. And Bridget and I met at ICFF last year. We met her, Shari, and I read her book. And I remember telling you, this is a woman we have to work with. We have to work with Bridget. And so it just kind of all fell together. I mean, it's such a God-ordained thing to me that God steps in and sort of handpicks these women, and we just get the privilege of working with them. And this writer's room and being able to, you guys, Zoom is like the greatest thing. Zoom and Google Meet, these ways that we are literally in how many different states right now? 4 states between all of us. Yep. So the fact that we can all get together and we can create a writer's room online like this, it's amazing.
I just also would love to shout out you guys for opening your capabilities and abilities to share with us. Like, I have learned so much through this process, and being mentored by someone who knows what they're doing is such a gift. And you didn't have to do that. You could have just written all the episodes by yourself, but you chose to invest in us and invest your time and your abilities into us so that we also can, flourish in this. It's such a gift. So thank you guys for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks
I
for saying
second
that.
Marianne 1000.
I do. Well, thank you, ladies. One thing I think we dreamt about, and I'm going to dive into our women here in a second, but we dreamt about really creating something like this where it wasn't just an audiobook or an audio drama. It really was a piece of work that was created with episodic, with lots of talents and characters and lots of voices. And we have some incredible men too on this cast list and who they are and how they're bringing these voices together. I want to dive in to talk about our characters because they are exceptional. And I keep using extraordinary, exceptional, powerful, intelligent, brilliant women, and really the ripple effect they all had on our lives today. I hope that's one of the things that the listeners really take away from these women. But I want to go to you, Katie, because when we got into the process, we finally, I want to say we partnered with the Washington Times and the Tea Party Patriots. And we all know in the entertainment industry, it's like, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. And then all of a sudden, it's like when it happens, right? And you just have to be ready to go. And so we really got to a place where we were like, okay, well, we just got the green light. And oh, by the way, we have less than 30 days or whatever it was, at that moment to finish writing these scripts and take all the concepts and, put it to paper and get it cast and the whole 9 yards. And so, Katie, you stepped in and you and Claire, I think our dream and vision has been this writer's room. And how do you do that? So you are teaching, you are mentoring, you're encouraging these women to be storytellers because Bridget, Marianne, Katie, Claire, myself, anyone else, we all have some different ways, the talents and gifts that God has bestowed upon us. So we're going to bring some unique voice to these women, right? Like that's a really powerful thing. And so as Claire started to work with everyone and then Katie stepped in as well, you two really started the process to navigate the story, the women, how these were going to come together. Katie, talk a little bit about that process where you and Claire were working on this. Also, the two women you wrote about and how you ended up discovering about one of the women who was very new to us. In fact, we didn't have her anywhere on our books.
Right. Well, I love working with Claire, and I loved that we kind of collaborated and we just focused on, yes, each episode stands on its own with an individual woman, but it is a complete story that we wanted to tell a complete story through all these individual women. So it really did involve looking individually, but then looking at it as one project. And so that was it was fascinating, and seeing how we could incorporate, like you mentioned, Abigail Adams and John Adams, their letters back and forth, which are just so rich. Their relationship was so interesting. And we hear so much about John Adams, and it's just fascinating to hear how much he valued his wife's counsel. And so seeing how we could weave Abigail and John's letters throughout each of the episodes and throwing in some intrigue with Agent 355, our mysterious spy, and those storylines. So it was just a really fun, big jigsaw puzzle, I think, to see how they would all work together and how they could each have their own personality. And they all do. They all have their own unique stamp, but they are collectively part of the same family. My particular characters, I had Sybil Ludington, who is a 16-year-old dynamo, and we brought in a woman named Two Kettles Together, Tiana Jonigan, who is an amazing Oneida woman, and we didn't know anything about her, but when we dove into her story, we realized she was such a important part of our nation's founding.
Yeah, she really was. I think what was also fascinating is I think originally, Claire, we were only going to do 6. And then we went to 7. And then before we knew it, we were at 8. And we were like, look at the scope of these women. They were so fantastic. Bridget, tell us about the character that you wrote about and talk to us about, how much did you know about this wonderful woman and what surprised you the most as you dug into her history?
The only thing I knew about Phillis Wheatley, that was my character, was her name. I knew nothing about Phillis Wheatley. I'm from Ohio originally, and we had a community center or something that was named after her. I knew she was someone important. But one of the things that was so intriguing about her was that she was the first enslaved woman to have published work. And I was like, wow. And she was a poet. So her poetry was published, and she was the first enslaved person to do that. And I was so fascinated by that. But yeah, she was remarkable.
She was remarkable. I think one thing that I found so fascinating too was that here she was, an enslaved woman. She was the first published enslaved, but also woman. I mean, this really was a time that women were not given. They weren't out there writing papers and doing this kind of thing and being recognized for it. And Phillis Wheatley was recognized. In fact, she was recognized also by some of the founding fathers and also by the very famous George Washington.
Yeah, she was actually to prove that, she was capable of doing the writings that she was doing around Boston and the colonies. She had to go before these 18 Boston men and prove her validity. And she held her ground, and they determined, like, okay, an enslaved woman is capable of doing these writings. So it was an amazing time.
It was wonderful. Well, I'm very excited for people to learn more about Phillis Wheatley and the impact that she had on poetry, on writing, on the quest for freedom, and the voice that she lent to so many who were not, that were still enslaved. Marianne, I'm going to dive in, talk a little bit about the woman that you wrote about and something that maybe a historical detail or fact that you learned about her while you were studying her. And did you know about her before you actually were writing?
I wrote about Deborah Sampson and had never heard of her before. She is considered the first female soldier, and she disguised herself as a man to fight in the Revolutionary War. I was really inspired by her, and you recognize how much we are allowed to do as women now and how hard it must have been when you had to be you weren't allowed to do the things that you wanted to do, and to have such honorable dreams of fighting for your nation and fighting for freedom and not being allowed to do it just because you're a woman. It's really amazing to see somebody defy what the rules are and kind of do it on the sly.
She was incredible. I don't know. We keep thinking about her and just what she went through. And I don't want to give it all away, but she was injured several times. The history reports that she was given an honorable discharge. There's so many things that is really fascinating about this young woman. She was 18 years old, just incredible. What do you think, Marianne, a young woman in today's world could learn from somebody like Deborah Sampson?
I think we can learn that a scraped knee is not that bad. True pain has been felt. And what we go through is probably like, let's stop whining, like we could whine a lot less. And if we just pursue what we are called to do and stop whining, then maybe we actually get somewhere.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well said, my friend. And that's a mic drop.
That's what I think I learned from that, because it's easy to just say, no, I can't do that. There's too many things that are stopping me. But really, if we really want something, we go make it happen,
Right. Right.
So
I love it. I love it. Claire, you had your fingerprint on all of these characters, and you were also working, and I'll talk to you about this too, Katie, but you were also working off of some of the novelettes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But talk about one of the women that you really just fell in love with and that you were writing on, and that you felt like, I didn't know about this woman, and the more and more I learn about her, the more and more I realize that her gift to us in today's culture. I mean, you've got everybody from Abigail Adams to Prudence Cummings. So there's so many women, but talk a little bit about the characters that you were writing about and what inspired you.
I think for me, I got to write on Abigail Adams with you, Shari, and Penelope Barker with you. And then I got to do Prudence Cummings Wright. I think what sticks out to me about all three of them is that they were all very courageous. But what I appreciated about them was that all three of them had their husbands leave for different reasons. Abigail's husband went to Philadelphia to be part of the Continental Congress. Penelope's husband went to England to be with the British Parliament over there. And Prudence Cummings Wright, her husband went to fight in the militia. And so I think it was really interesting to see how each of these women was able to run their farms, take care of their children, and run their bank accounts. So they took care of all these things without their husbands while doing these monumental, impactful things like stopping a spy or writing these letters that would impact all women, or Penelope Barker getting 51 women to sign a declaration. And something that stood out about Penelope Barker to me was that she got all these women to sign their name to this declaration, but they signed their real names. Whereas in the Boston Tea Party, they all hid behind masks. So that was something I learned. And I was really inspired by that. Because to stand up and actually sign your name to something and say, hey, this is me and this is what I believe and I'm going to sign my real name is difficult. That was something that really impacted me. But also what all three of these women did was they just were willing, despite not feeling equipped. I'm sure none of them felt equipped. None of them felt ready. I'm sure all three of them had to step out of their comfort zone to do something, but God called them to do it and they were willing and willing to step out in obedience and just say yes. And so to me, that was extremely impactful.
Yeah, I love that because these women did go through so much. I think when you're talking about, Penelope Barker, first of all, I would say that their husbands left not for a month or two or even a couple weeks or a couple days. I mean, you're talking years without their husbands, their partners to help them raise children and take care of these farms and to live through a time when there was a revolutionary war that was happening. They didn't know what was going on from day to day. I think one of the stories that I love too is Prudence Cummings Wright, and she ends up becoming the first woman to form the Guardians of Liberty, which is the militia of women who hold the bridge and, stop the spy, the courier that's going off. And I thought, here's a woman just like Penelope and these others. They've lost children, they've lost their husbands, their livelihoods in a lot of ways, and yet they're still willing to go and risk their life. And I thought that was something that was really fascinating about these women. And I love just being a part of these stories. And I think where I want to go from here, because as we talk about this, the two things. One, I think there's the way I love how God works is all of these women's stories were different. But when you start to see and you hear all the stories together, you realize there is a thread that weaves all of these women together. And for such a time as that, their stories were unique, but at the same time, they were purposed and they knew that they were standing for one another. And even though they were in different places. Katie, I want to talk a little bit more about your two characters, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about them, and then also give us, what inspired you about these women, and then also talk to us a little bit about the additional pieces that Beautifully Flawed Productions is doing with Heather and the additional stories that are being told.
Sure. So one of my episodes was Sybil Ludington. I mentioned she was a 16-year-old girl who was one of many, many children, but she was the oldest. And she's remarkable because she learned that the British were attacking Danbury and they were headed towards her house. Her father was in charge of the local militia and they were coming for him. And there was no one to alert the militia because they had all been sent home for farming season. And she was it. There was no one but her. And she stepped into it. And I love that story because I think courage, it doesn't mean you're not afraid. We talked about that at the beginning of the podcast. Like we all stepped into this. We were all afraid, but courage is stepping forward anyway and knowing that you're being called to a higher purpose. And she hopped on her horse and she rode 40 miles in the middle of the night in a storm. The more research I did, she did twice the distance of Paul Revere. She's known as the female Paul Revere, but she went twice the distance. And I don't know her, but I feel like I do. And I'm proud of her because, she comes back and she did it and she alerted the militia. She's an amazing young woman. And then Two Kettles Together, Tiana Jonigan, the Oneida woman, she is amazing because of her loyalty to her husband and to her family and to her nation. The Oneida were some of the only Native Americans that were siding with the Patriots, and so they were called to help, and they willingly went into one of the bloodiest battles of the Revolutionary War. She didn't send her husband into war. She went alongside him and, in fact, played a very important role during that battle. So I'll leave a little mystery there so you can listen. There are some exciting battle scenes, but she was not only loyal to her husband and her community, but she also was very important in helping the wounded and just a remarkable woman. So anyway, those were the two women, and we're so excited with Beautifully Flawed Productions launching a publishing arm. And so I know, Shari, you mentioned that we have these amazing novelettes that are accompanying each episode. So Heather Blanton, who is just an incredibly talented writer, she wrote these novelettes for each of the women, and we will be releasing them. And they go hand in hand with the audio episodes. People can listen to the audio episodes and just immerse themselves in the audio experience, be transported back in time, but then also get these novelettes that dive a little deeper, round out the stories a little longer. And we're excited that people can do both and just get a really great, beautiful picture of each of these women.
I love it. Yeah, we're so excited. I know people are hearing it first. Beautifully Flawed Productions is launching their publishing arm.
More to come.
More to come. Stay tuned. Hey, friends, if you're enjoying today's episode, we'd love your support. Hit like, subscribe, comment, and share this video, which helps us grow the channel that directly supports the women in my world and our mission to develop, educate, and launch Christian women in the entertainment and media industry. Every action you take truly makes a difference in our ministry. And now we'd like to share a brief video about the heart and mission behind the women in my world. Thank you for being a part of this incredible journey with us. Hi, I'm Shari Rigby, the founder of the Women in My World. Our goal is simple but powerful. We focus on developing, educating, and launching Christian women in entertainment and media. Our aim is to train up emerging talent, empower them to craft impactful, God-honoring content across various platforms, and contribute to positive global change through leadership roles. We invest in women by providing opportunities to learn essential skills in their desired field. Through hands-on education and on-the-job training, we build a community of like-minded women who shepherd others to grow and flourish in their careers. The Women in My World has helped support and launch women into key positions, such as producers, script supervisors, production and costume designers, directors, makeup and hair artists, and so many more. These women have gone on to expand their resumes and their relationships, which have provided opportunities to work on major network television shows and feature films. Due to the small percentage of Christian women in decision-making roles in entertainment, believers must invest in their training, mentoring, and discipleship. These women can then become a voice to change in the negative narratives influencing our culture and shed light on topics we desperately need to tackle from a biblical worldview. The Women in My World is honored to help support women and their careers in entertainment and media as they bring redemptive stories to life and uplift, encourage, and influence the world for Christ. You know, we're just like every story we get so excited about, but we really see, and we'll have to do a whole nother episode on why and how and all that looks. But I want to go back and I want to talk a little bit more because with these women, they were so unique for their time. And Marianne, I want to ask you, did you see any type of your own story or struggle or experiences that reflected in Deborah Sampson? Did you feel like there was some connection there? And did you have a scene that you wrote that was really meaningful to you?
Ooh, such a good question. Well, one of the things that I really appreciated with Claire's mentorship through this is that she challenged me to make it more emotional and to find a really emotional beat in it. I think I was just putting the actions that were happening down on the page, and she said, make it your own or make it emotional. And so one of the first scenes in my story is of Deborah and her siblings being at their mother's funeral, which is one of the pivotal moments for her, really, is that all the children were scattered to different homes. And having been a missionary kid myself and being kind of ripped away from my family at a young age, so that we lived in dorms away from my parents, it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I'm gonna take that pain and I'm gonna put it on the page, and I'm gonna see that pull away from those that you love. And I think that really, you know that it's going to be impactful when you're crying as you're writing. So that was definitely one of those moments where I was like, I can see her pain and feel her pain in this moment.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting as we start to dive into characters, and people always say, well, write what you know. And so often there's a lot of times we don't write what we know. We write what some of the desire or passion is, right? But when we start to write what we know, boy, the pen can really, flow and the story, and it just resonates deeply. So I love that you shared that. And Deborah does go through a lot. She goes through a lot as a young child, all the way through growing up, and then to, going and fighting in, George Washington's army. So it's pretty incredible story. Bridget, I want to ask you, was there anything particular about Phillis Wheatley that really also resonated with you personally? And when you were diving in and writing any of the scenes that you put down on paper, was there one that just really hit you emotionally, or you thought, this is something that everybody needs to know about?
Well, I would say one of the ones, the scenes that hit me was possibly her being ripped away from her father. That I was like, oh my goodness. I feel like it paints a very vivid picture of the horror of the transatlantic slave trade. And as far as me relating to her, I would definitely say being a Black writer and just in America before America was the colonies, but just having this desire to be seen, and not always feeling like you're seen. So definitely. And also with you and Claire, the mentorship, I feel like that, Susanna, which was the Susanna Wheatley and John Wheatley were the ones that purchased her. Her fighting for her with the Boston men, and just to be free, to be published. That correlation, I saw that with you all just kind of giving me that chance, because I don't know if Claire told you, Shari, but I have been just on cloud nine. I'm like, God, you're so amazing for giving me this opportunity. So I'm grateful, and I see that correlation. Y'all fought for me to be a part of this, so I'm grateful.
Wow, thank you. We're so excited. And I know Claire is so connected. I love it because she was like, Bridget, and you just know when God locks your arms with somebody, and it's the same way we
Yes.
feel about Marianne and Katie. But we're just so honored that you penned this and you lent your voice to bring Phillis Wheatley to life. So she's going to be a really phenomenal character for people to know more about. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Claire, I want to talk to you a little bit about what your writing process is like when you're, tackling historical figures, and how did you prepare? What did you do research process look like? Because not only were you tackling them from your perspective, you and Katie were working together, you were also working with the other writers. So what was that process like for you, and how did you then share that with the women that you were connecting with?
Well, I have to say thank goodness for the internet, because you can learn so much in a little amount of time. It's not like back in the day when, Shari, you and I had to look at encyclopedias. I mean, it's so wonderful to be able to just type things in and research online. It's
Yeah.
so helpful. And then I would say just the writing process it did take quite a number of steps to figure it out. Especially with Agent 355 and putting her in every episode, it was just a process. Like, we would try it, and then if it didn't work, we would rework it. And I think I'm really grateful for Katie for coming on board. We spent so much time actually just discussing before we even went further. We'd say, okay, how are we going to rework this? How do we rewrite this? How does this make sense? And then even with the writers, like with Bridget and Marianne, we would have them do a draft, and then we would come together and we'd be like, let's come up with the notes. How are we going to get them to rewrite it? Or what is it that we want them to do? So we're really trying to get everybody involved in the process. Shari always comes on board. And what I love about Shari is she's such a visionary. And so she makes all these pieces so cinematic. Even though it's audio, it's so cinematic. So I feel like the collaboration between all of us was so real. The process was very collaborative, and not any of the episodes were just one person's hand on it. It was all of us coming together and sort of putting our heads together and coming up with stories and making them work. So that was the whole process. And it was so much fun, guys. It's not the same without being able to work with other people.
That's what makes it such a great process to be in a writer's room. And it's such a fascinating way to do it in the stories and stuff. And we sharpen one another. That's what it's supposed to be. Iron sharpens iron. Katie, talk a little bit about what was the most challenging aspect of writing these episodes. And again, how do you balance historical accuracy with a compelling story? Because that's something that we have to do. And I will say, I think we were going through the process of understanding how much was historical. And I think we were at about an 85%, which is really fantastic. So talk about those challenges and how you tackled it.
Well, writing anything is challenging, right?
Yeah.
As writers, you open up a blank page and it's like the most impossible task. But in order to write a compelling story, you have to know your characters. And so for this, these are real women. These aren't people we're imagining up. And it really did take a lot of time and research to look into who these women were. I can't tell you how many hours I spent diving into the letters between Abigail and John, because it's amazing. They're all documented, and you can, you can put in a date, or you can put in a subject, and you can pull it up and read their letters to one another. And you think, oh my gosh, we don't write letter. We just text now. But these were like handwritten letters back and forth. So I think the challenge was just really doing a deep dive, not only into our own characters, but to the characters that were in their world, Abigail and John and Mercedes Warren, and figuring out what drove them and what compelled them. So, but that's also the fun part too, right? Once you get to know who these people were, you realize Abigail and John's relationship was so important and really uncommon.
I think that was something that I loved. First of all, I want to say too is our characters or our talent who played these two leads. Abigail Adams is played by the wonderful Rachel Hendricks, and Jonathan Adams is Jonathan Stoddard. And these two really, they were not in the same room together, and you would have thought that they had known each other all of their lives. Like, it was so beautiful. In fact, we keep laughing because we're like, and Jonathan Stoddard, John Adams is our Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. Get ready, ladies, get ready. But it's something so unique to see these two wonderful, talented people bring these characters to life. And then, we have Alex Kendrick, who plays George Washington, and he brings this very, formal but yet enduring, voice to life. And so many incredible characters all the way along. But I think that one of the things that I loved about these characters so much, and I want to talk a little bit more about it, was what you were saying, Katie, was the historical pieces that people don't really know about. It's these letters that really did share and show the love between a husband and wife and what they were going through and how much both of them mattered to one another. Talk a little bit about, and I'm going to go to Marianne on this, and we can piggyback on this a little bit here, but I want to talk about what are some of the spiritual themes that emerged most strongly from your character through this process of writing, and maybe some of her attributes.
One of my favorite songs comes from, it's an old hymn, but it's "Fight for all that you hold dear, die if God so meant it." And I feel like that's kind of her theme throughout her story, is that if God is asking of you to die, then that is what God is asking of you, and you go forth and you obey. So that song is just kind of the theme that I had for her storyline. of just being obedient to the path that God has called you to, no matter what comes your way.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. And the old hymns were so important in that day, too. Bridget, how did your character demonstrate faith, courage, obedience in a way that really inspired you?
Well, one of the things about Phyllis was she adored George. I think it's George Whitfield, right? Because his name is spelled Whitefield, but I think it's pronounced Whitfield, right? Okay, it's spelled George Whitefield, but she adored him, and that was also reflected in her poetry. But not just him, just Jesus, period. And one of her poems, it was kind of like apologetic. She was speaking to like the atheist, just kind of saying like, "This is God. You should believe in Him." In a sense, so she definitely wrote her faith into her poetry, and you can see that she also believed that freedom was for everyone, and I believe that was because of how she surrendered her life to Jesus, and that happened after she, was came over from Africa. So. Yeah, it's a blessing that she was a believer in Jesus. So I think that also helped when I was writing because I'm a believer, I'm a writer. She was a believer, she's a writer. I'm like, oh, this is kind of easy to write, with her.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I love that. Katie, what would you say were some of the faith characteristics of your two characters and how did they inspire you?
Well, I think that, we see this theme you've mentioned before of for such a time as this. And these two women both were presented with an opportunity to either step forward in faith, to walk in courage or not. And I think both of them did that. So I think that that's just really inspiring. I think we all have opportunities in our daily lives where we feel the prompting of the Holy Spirit and we think this is my time.
Yeah.
And so I'm inspired by both of them in that way. I mentioned Two Kettles Together, just her loyalty and love for her husband and to never leave his side. It's a beautiful love story, and I loved putting that into the episode alongside Abigail and John's love story because it's different than the time that we're living in now, but it is beautiful. It's beautiful.
I love it. Well, before I move on to talk about some of the other things that we're going to talk about before we wrap up our conversation, you had a moment we've kind of sat and we've laughed about it a little bit. There was a particular scene that you wrote into your storyline, and I remember as we were doing the read-throughs, we were like, "Wait a minute, what? Talk a little bit about that particular scene, Katie."
So this goes back to being historically accurate in these stories. Yes, we've dramatized them and we have kind of tied these stories together for the sake of a great story, but we really are historically accurate. And for Two Kettles Together in the battle scene, we were doing a read through and I was doing the read through, and there was a particular scene with one of the colonels and he says a line like, take me to this tree and sit me under this tree. And I just had to stop the entire table read and I had to be like, I didn't write that line. Like, that's not my line. Like, he said that. And he's kind of famous for that line. So I just want you all to know, like, if I had written it, I would have pizzazzed it up a little. But we want to be historically accurate and we want to give honor to the people who were a part of the story. So anyway, I just kept saying, that's not my line.
I loved it. We got some really good laughs out of that. Claire, I'm going to ask you that quick question too. What were some of the attributes or, different elements that might have inspired you about the characters that you were putting your hand to? And was there any particular scene that really stood out to you?
I think for me, it was be strong and courageous, that God goes with us wherever we go. And to me, that is the faith element that resonates with me for each of the characters. There's so many things that I appreciate about these women and about the characters. I think one of the things that really impacted me was how many of them were widows. And I am, this past year has been that for me, and to have to take care of my family without my husband over the last year, and to take care of all the kids and take care of college and take care of life and take care of feeding everybody and all of those things has been really impactful for me to see these women go through the same thing and do that. I think that was inspirational for me. And I think that takes a lot of courage of these women. And it takes a lot of courage, I think, for me, I guess, to have to do that as well. Yeah, that's not easy. So I've gotten to see and they did it for years and years and years, you know. I think that was something that really impacted me.
Yeah, I think that everybody's going to kind of walk through or answer some piece of this, but I'll start with you, Katie. Why do you think that these stories matter still today? And after spending so much time with these women, how has your perspective on American history changed?
I think these stories matter because they happened and we don't know about them. And they all went into forming our country. And they all went into our collective story. And if we don't know about them, we're missing something. It reminds me that there are always layers to every story. There's always different perspectives to every story. And if we're only looking at one, we're missing out. And I hope that people, women, men, children, families, homeschool families, I hope they all come around these episodes, and I hope it inspires them to dig deeper and learn about, I mean, we tell 8 stories. 8 stories. We could tell 8,000 stories. I hope they dig deeper, and I hope they find those other little stories that are unknown or unseen and are inspired to get the big picture of our collective story as a country.
That's really good. Claire, what do you hope that people learn from this? And where do you see the Defiant Ones going from here?
Well, I hope that what people get from it is not just the history and learning about some things that maybe they hadn't known about, but also that they would be inspired to realize that God used these ordinary women to do these extraordinary things. And in that same way, God can use you to do the same thing. You just have to be willing. You have to step out in obedience, and you have to know that God is calling you to do something, but you have to get uncomfortable and say, yes, I'm going to do that. And I felt like each and every woman did that. It's reflected in each of the stories. So I hope that's something that the audience will take from it. Where I see Defiant Ones going, there's so much, and I'm so excited, ladies. I just see, we've discussed this, Shari. We've been discussing some of what could be possibly to go through more of history, to go through some of the other wars, some of the other things that happen in American history, and tell these women's stories from that era. And I would love to be able to do that and keep telling these kind of stories, because I think it's so important, like Katie is saying, historically, to know these stories that we don't get to read about in our history books.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I see and hope for the future for Defiant Ones.
I love that. Well, one thing I would say too is, as we're talking about this piece of it, as we were dreaming about this and then hearing it come to life in the way that it does, it is an immersive Dolby Atmos experience. You're really transported to another time. It's such a great way for families in their car to listen together and to put the screens away, and to use their imagination. It's so incredible. We're talking about the atmosphere in schools. That children can be actually immersed into something and really learn and listen and use their imagination again, other than visually having to see it, but they can hear it. It's almost, I think that's something that's been so cool, is to think about how are all the ways that we can tell these stories about these incredible heroes, and then also give experience, or, the experience to people and this new kind of world of audio listening, and take it to a whole nother level with the immersive experience. So I think the sky is the limit. We're really excited, and cannot wait to tell so many more incredible stories about, these heroes that have left an, impact on our world. Marianne, I want to ask you, if listeners, what do you hope listeners take away from Defiant Ones? And when they listen to Deborah Sampson, which is episode 7, what is your hope that they will take away from not only Defiant Ones, but also from her character?
I hope that people will see these women's courage, and I hope that it inspires others to be courageous. We were talking about all these puzzle pieces coming together, and each of these women is a puzzle piece to what led to the American Revolution and the success of everything. And I think that we ourselves are puzzle pieces in God's story, and allowing ourselves to be placed on the big puzzle board is really important. And without us, we don't get what God intended for the big picture. I just hope that people would come away with the courage to be who we're created to be, and to believe in ourselves, to have the ability to do something new and hard. And like Claire, you were saying, this is a fun project. Like, we had fun doing it, and let's make it fun. This was so hard for me. This was one of the hardest things, because history is not my forte. Like, it wasn't my forte. I hated history in high school. And one of the reasons I hated it was maybe it wasn't taught the way that I understood it. So the fact that this could be an audio drama where people see that history is real people who experienced these things, who walked through these battles. And so I think that one day we will be history. And so for others to see what we did, and just as females in the entertainment industry, the fact that we have gone and written this, and the fact that we are a part of something bigger, is really exciting. So I hope that people will see the courage that it took to make this, and the courage that it took for these women to walk through these really intense situations. I hope that people will know that you can do hard things.
So good. And I love that you just said that about history and learning, because let me tell you, I think there's so often that we forget about that we all learn differently, and the way that we consume something can really affect and impact our lives. And can you imagine what it would look like if we were able to take people and really allow them to be immersed in history, to experience it in a whole different way, to be transported into something that they could actually experience it, not just watching it anymore, but really using their imagination, their senses to bring something to life. And all of a sudden it becomes, ingrained in the experience, and now we can talk about it, right? And what an incredible opportunity is. I love that perspective, Marianne. So thank you for sharing that. It's so good. And Bridget, I'm going to ask you, if listeners remember just one thing about your character, Phillis Wheatley, what would you hope that it is?
So, two things that I can think of, and this is from the story of Joseph, where he said, what the enemy meant for evil. I always butcher the second part. I can't remember if it said God turned it around for my good, or God, but I know there's something like God turned it around. Definitely that, because her story did not start out well at all, but God got the glory in the end. And the second one of my all-time favorite scriptures, Romans 8:28, that God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So just knowing that it doesn't, the circumstances does not limit God. He can work in whatever. We just have to, like so many other ladies said, just be willing, just be obedient, and just trust God. He has a plan beyond what we can see. So just be courageous and just say yes, God, because we don't know. We can't even see it to the next second. We just have to trust God.
I know.
His plans are bigger, way bigger than ours.
That's really good. It's really good. There's one more thing I want to talk about really quick, because I'm going back to what Marianne was saying about history, and then we'll wrap up our conversation together and get excited about sharing these episodes with people, because they're getting ready to launch. But Katie, I want to ask you really quick. We've done some things now. You and Claire, we've been working on some really cool things for the youth. And I want to talk about that really quick, and some of the additional assets that we've created, puzzle pieces, games, things like that. And hopefully those will be available for people soon.
Yes, we have a coloring and activity book that we've pulled together that really are for young kids. They can color and learn more about fun facts about each of the women, and do some different games and activities. And we're excited about that, because we want this to be an experience. Not only can they listen to these episodes, but they can have conversations with their kids and bring them in at whatever level they're at to teach about these women. Yeah, we're excited about our games and our coloring, and we have some some plans in the work to teach even the youngers about these women and their lives. So we have a lot of things in the hopper.
We do. We have a T-shirt that says we have a lot of work to do.
It's our motto.
But it's so cool because I think that that's the thing that I keep thinking through as we talk about Defiant Ones. There is something for everyone here, all the way to our youngers who really do have an opportunity to learn about history, to learn about so many of the men and women who put their fingerprint on this country, and what we're getting ready to celebrate America 250 coming up here in just a very short period of time. And then really for this next year to celebrate the birth of our nation. And I think with that, we get to experience the women who helped to birth this nation and to forge something that we know today as the Defiant Ones, the bravest women of the American Revolution. And it's been so incredible to see, though, the assets, the games and the coloring pages for the youngers and the novelettes for the next age group, and then up to the olders, and then also the audio drama that can be listened to and experienced by all. So I'm so excited about this particular series. If there's anything else that you want to say before we head out, I'm going to give a little bit of a where people can find it, but because we're getting ready here to launch.
So excited. Everybody should listen. It's going to be so much fun. The music's great. The companion pieces are great. The novelettes are so fun. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be perfect for different age groups. Everyone's going to learn something and have fun doing it.
We have a devotional, we have character one sheets, we have lots of resources for whatever people want to use them for. If they're homeschooling and they want to supplement some of their curriculum, or if they're just interested like we are in learning, there's something for everyone.
I love it. Well, we're so excited that everyone who's listened and joined us today to talk about the Defiant Ones, and just to be a part of this conversation with the writers. These are women who, first and foremost, as you can tell, they love the Lord with all their heart, and they love to tell these types of stories. And so we're excited to see what Defiant Ones is going to do. We also want to let you know that Defiant Ones will be streaming on thewashingtontimes.com/Defiant Ones. You're going to be able to go there. You're going to be able to listen to the first episode here on July 2nd. Then each episode will start to come out 1 week after and to follow, and it'll be on all of the RSS feeds that you love. So Apple, Spotify, you name it. But we would love for you all to first and foremost go to the Washington Times and log on there. And also stay connected. The Tea Party Patriots, they have a lot of assets as well. Beautifully Flawed Productions. We're going to be launching new pieces of work throughout this series, and we're going to be sharing so many different things that we're going to be hopefully bringing to life to accompany this fantastic series on the Defiant Women, prophets, poets, spies, the bravest women that you will ever meet. I'm just like, I get giddy over it. So anyway, ladies, all I can say to you is thank you for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for being called as creatives, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. We hope today's episode inspired you. If it did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with somebody in your world so we can reach more and more amazing women in entertainment and media. We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a comment below. Your support truly means the world to us, and it helps us keep doing this important work. Also, don't miss out on signing up for our newsletter, and you get our acting prep guide for free. It's packed with tips to help you step into your purpose. If you feel led, also please consider donating to support our ministry. All the links are in the show notes below. We can't wait to hear from you to join us next time.